You may have heard that the co-host of MSNBC's Morning Joe went to Mar-a-Lago to have a private sit-down with the president-elect. Now, it wouldn't be that surprising that two hosts of an American TV show wanted to meet with the next leader of the United States. But the reason it's raising eyebrows is that Joe Scarborough once compared Donald Trump to Hitler. Welcome to Newspeak, I'm Kellum. Mika, Brzezinski, and Joe Scarborough said they went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President-elect Trump because they saw that just attacking him on the airwaves wasn't having any effect.
And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we? 5 years of political warfare has deeply divided Washington and the country. We have been as clear as we know how in expressing our deep concerns about President Trump's actions and words in the coarsening of public debate. Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
Now, they were clear-eyed about how this would be perceived, especially by viewers of the show. If you have watched Morning Joe post-2020, you know the tenor of their coverage of Trump. Here is Scarborough basically calling Trump Hitler.
In 2 days, he threatens to, says the chairman of the Joint Chiefs probably should be executed. And then he says that the news network that is most critical of him should be taken off the air. This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them. Do I think that Donald Trump's going to be allowed to line people up against the wall and shoot them? No, he'd like to. No doubt. I know him, and I've known him for a long time, and we can see this. He would like to. He's not going to be allowed to.
Now, I could play you endless sound bites of similar commentary from them, but I think you get the idea. They told their viewers for years that Trump was lying every day and destroying the country. Now, as you might expect, Trump didn't take the insults lying down. He took to calling Mika Mike and said she had a low IQ. And he has loved gloating over the show's poor ratings. Now, if you've watched Morning Joe long enough to remember when Joe Scarborough was a friend of Trump's, you may be getting whiplash yet again. Here is Scarborough in 2016.
Well, Donald Trump, congratulations. How's your family holding up at this point?
Everyone's great. It was great seeing you, and you guys have been supporters, and I really appreciate it. And not necessarily supporters, but at least believers. You said there's some potential there. And the same thing with Bob. Bob has been a real professional, whereas other people were looking and saying, well, wait a minute, he's very successful as a developer and a business guy, but he's not a politician. And Bob got an early glance, and I appreciate Bob's fair reporting in the Washington Post very much so.
Okay. Well, I will tell you what, when you say supporter, you're talking about how actually, you're talking about Bob, Mika, myself, also Halprin, Willie, and those of us around the table. There were a handful of people who, for 6 months, have been saying what happened last night could happen. And the rest of the media world has been
But let me clarify what supporters
has been mocking and ridiculing exactly what he's done.
This is kind of important because from the get-go, I mean, I don't agree. Donald and I have not agreed on things ever since we started talking about pageants on Morning Joe. So it's not like Donald and I have the same worldview. You guys might in some ways, but we knew that he could do this from the get-go. So I think the sense is that we believed that his talents actually could follow through and translate into something, while everyone else underestimated him.
Scarborough was once a Republican congressman in Florida. He and Brzezinski were both visitors of Mar-a-Lago before Trump became president. CNN reported that Scarborough has often stayed at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida with his family, and was there during the week between Christmas and New Year's. On the night of the New Hampshire primary, Scarborough and Brzezinski visited Trump's hotel room for what MSNBC described as background discussions with the candidate's senior staff and a conversation with Trump that lasted less than 5 minutes. At one point, Scarborough was even asked if he would be willing to become Trump's vice president, and spoiler, he didn't say no.
I've told a number of people Trump will ask Scarborough to be his running mate for a whole variety of reasons, especially Florida. and you're not a stranger to Virginia, and you know your way around politics. So just really, would you say yes?
I will say this, and I've said this on the air, and so this is not really any secret at all. I'll do anything that will stop us from 8 more years, like the past 8 years we've had.
Amen.
So what happened? How did the relationship go so bad? Well, it might have something to do with who Brzezinski and Scarborough are working for. Scarborough's cozy relationship with Trump was becoming something of a problem for the staff and head honchos at NBC, the parent company of MSNBC. According to CNN, in background discussions, NBC News and MSNBC journalists, reporters, and staffers said there was widespread discomfort at the network over Scarborough's friendship with Trump and his increasingly favorable coverage of the candidate. 4 of those sources also said that the growing media scrutiny over the two men's relationship has caused the network's leadership to more closely monitor Scarborough's comments. The higher-ups are definitely aware about what's going on, said another person within MSNBC. It's an issue. Well, that issue was finally resolved when the men broke it off circa May of 2016. Scarborough wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post criticizing Trump's campaign. He said anyone on Team Trump who believes their candidate can tweet his way to victory in November is greatly mistaken. Unless the Trump team figures out how to build a campaign operation that focuses more on fundamentals than flashy PR tricks, the next deal Donald Trump will be negotiating will be his return to The Apprentice. Trump responded by writing, Joe Scarborough initially endorsed Jeb Bush, and Jeb Bush crashed, then John Kasich, and that didn't work. Not much power or insight. A few days later, he tweeted, I don't watch or do Morning Joe anymore. Small audience, low ratings. I hear Mika has gone wild with hate. Joe is Joe. They lost their way. Now, the pair did kiss and make up briefly after Trump was elected in 2016. Mr. Trump said on Thursday that the pair did spend New Year's Eve at Mar-a-Lago, the president's Florida estate, although Mr. Scarborough initially said they had gone there to arrange an interview. Right. Raise your hand if you believe that was the reason they were there. They told Vanity Fair that while they were there, the president offered to officiate at their wedding and host it at the White House or at Mar-a-Lago. Brzezinski said that her answer to that was, if it weren't Trump, it might be something to think about. Now, Brzezinski is a liberal who has been open about her political differences with Trump, basically from the beginning, and that shouldn't surprise you considering that this is MSNBC. But after Trump left office, Morning Joe became shorthand for Joe Biden's favorite show, and not because it shares his name. Brzezinski's family is close to the Biden family, a fact that they have been open about on air.
We have known him for a long time. Mika and her family extraordinarily close to the Bidens.
But that hasn't stopped Brzezinski and Scarborough from, shall we say, bearing the hatchet with Trump when he became powerful. Like I said, they briefly made up after Trump was reelected, but in 2017 the relationship soured again when Morning Joe criticized Trump's Muslim ban. Brzezinski said before their most recent trip to Mar-a-Lago, they hadn't spoken to the president-elect since 2020, that is, except for a call that Scarborough made to Trump after his first assassination attempt. Now, ironically, NBC was reportedly so worried about Morning Joe's coverage of the assassination that they kept the co-hosts off the air the next day. Brzezinski and Scarborough made it known that they were not okay with that decision, and they threatened to quit if it happened again. But back to the present. Fast forward to the present, I would say the co-hosts seem to be preparing to bury the hatchet again. As for their reasons, well, they seem to consider themselves something of a Trump whisperer for Democrats.
And I will tell you, a lot of Democratic leaders we've talked to this past week, since the election, have told Mika and me it's time for a new approach. And when I say top Democrats, I mean top Democrats. They said, we're open, and this was before we talked to Donald Trump. They said, listen, we're open to working with the incoming president if the incoming president is open to working with us.
Yeah, the question is, though, how do we get there?
Their argument is now that Trump has won, Democrats need to seek common ground, and their hair on fire reporting on Donald Trump warning viewers that he is a dictator also apparently didn't work. So now they seem to be trying to get into Trump's good graces again to have influence over the president.
As for us, we also let him know that we will continue to speak truth to power and push back hard when called for, as we have with all presidents.
Now, the journalistic rationale here seems to have been an afterthought. They claim that this is to help their viewers better understand Trump.
We're not here to defend or normalize Donald Trump. We're here to report on him and to hopefully provide you insights that are going to better equip all of us in understanding these deeply unsettling times.
But what I think a lot of viewers want to know is, if this was really a journalistic mission, why didn't they talk to Trump on camera? Why did they go down to Mar-a-Lago in secret? To that, I would answer, because Scarborough and Brzezinski aren't journalists. They are opinion show hosts. I did a whole video about the difference between the two, which I'll put a link to in the description. But in short, they're being paid to give their opinions. They're not being paid to act like neutral reporters who deliver the news without fear or favor. Yes, they cover the news just like journalists do, but make no mistake, their show isn't about informing you, it's about influencing you. The other reason that's been floated is that Scarborough and Brzezinski are scared of Trump going after them. CNN is reporting that their meeting was driven by fears of retribution from the incoming administration. According to two sources with direct knowledge of the matter, Scarborough and Brzezinski were credibly concerned that they could face governmental and legal harassment from the incoming Trump administration. The other, more logical explanation is that they're worried about their ratings. Now, after years of Trump bashing, this, I would say, predictably didn't go over well with the show's viewers. The show is hemorrhaging viewers, according to ratings company Nielsen. Roughly 38% of the lucrative 25 to 54 demo also turned off MSNBC or switched to another network. The Times reported Tuesday's audience average for the show was down 11%. And the punditry class didn't look so favorably on it either.
Should you reach out on things that you agree on? Well, of course you should. Now, do you think that Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski went there to fight for paid family leave, fight for the anti-war position, fight for some policy? No, they went to go fight for their own ass.
How long have they been telling us that he's an existential threat, that he's a Hitler-esque figure, that he's a fascist, that women will die if he gets elected? Well, they've done a 180. They've done a 180 as their ratings circle the bowl.
Unlike other people in the media who have been completely unhinged about Trump being Hitler, Trump being in bed with Putin, the Steele dot, all of that, those people actually believe it. Like, they're that insane. Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski don't believe in anything other than their own career and their own ratings. It's so opportunistic and careerist. I have so much more respect for the insane people on that network who at least believe what they're saying.
And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Mar-a-Lago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story.
But another MSNBC presenter, Katie Fang, has now tweeted, "Normalizing Trump is a bad idea, period."
I think for them, it's like, you know what? This is a way to get back in the media ratings game. You know, the idea that we're connected to Trump. But, to me, that's it really calls into question, have they been authentic when they were saying that this guy is so harsh when it comes to women, so harsh and racist when it comes to blacks and Latinos, and has an authoritarian, even as we were saying, fascist streak.
Yeah.
To my mind, you got to be straight about your authentic sense so that the audience can trust you, and I think they put that at risk today.
I should say it wasn't unanimous. There were some pundits who cheered them on.
I absolutely think it was the right decision, and I think it's good that they work on MSNBC. I don't want only Fox people going to see them. You have the conversations or nothing happens.
They met with him for over 90 minutes. They raised very valid concerns, and in the same way that I thought it was right for Joe Biden to meet with him, and that I think it's right for presidents to meet with foreign adversaries to try to find diplomatic relations and ways to bring people together and solve problems. This is absolutely the right thing.
This might be the first time I've ever said this. Mika Brzezinski makes a valid point. Journalists, other media figures, and political pundits should be in conversation with political figures on both sides of the aisle, even if they find their policies distasteful or profoundly wrong-headed. Refusal to meet with the other side is exactly how echo chambers develop.
If you go and hang out with Trump, and I've criticized him as much as I've praised him, he can take criticism if he feels like you're not just unrelentingly abusive. So I actually thought that Joe and Mika, we'll play a clip from what they said this morning, but I thought this was a good move on their part.
Another person who was gracious about the rapprochement was Donald Trump. He told Fox News Digital that Scarborough initiated the call and that the conversation was extremely cordial. Many things were discussed, and I very much appreciated the fact that they wanted to have open communication, he said. In many ways, it's too bad that it wasn't done long ago. Now, like I said, I don't think there is much journalistic intent here, but then again, Scarborough and Brzezinski aren't being paid to be journalists. They're being paid to get ratings. So that's my opinion on this. What do you think, though? Does this make sense for their viewers, for their show, for the country? Let me know in the comments below what you think. And while you're down there, I have a big favor to ask of you. I recently joined the crowdfunding platform Locals, and I've reached my upload limit for the month. The only way to increase it is to get more followers. So if you could join me on Locals, which requires no financial contribution or commitment, I would really, really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Holly Kellum, and you're watching Newspeak.